the Rabbi comes in before me. Remember to put on the clip on his thigh, okay? I'm going to get his chair. Attempt to get his chair. Chair recovered.
Where was he?
What?
Where was he?
I wonder.
Pardon? Upstairs?
I wonder. Coming from that door, probably in front by the driveway, no? Yes, it was upstairs.
About the pudding for bringing.
Yes?
I listened online and he stopped in the middle.
Wow. So there's another one. There's a couple of recordings.
Yeah, but when will they post it?
So we posted.
It was posted? I couldn't find it. You have to go to YouTube or Yeshiva.net?
I don't know.
Because it just says part 1 and then it says that the rest will be posted when it has been processed.
Oh, so there you go. It actually told you the answer.
But see, I enjoy much more listening to him than to Sorokin. You know, the whole first hour was band playing.
So there's a thing called, it's not like the old cassette players that you have to like wave or push. You just take the browser, you move it a little bit
I
up.
do, I know.
Oh, so what's the difference? An hour or
No,
5
but
hours?
when I was listening live, you know, I was sitting there for an hour.
Oh. That I can help. Morning, Shlomo. I have the sample for you in the car. It's a very nice note. I was hoping you would write add to it and make it a powerful thing. How are you? That's very nice. I don't know if it's me that needs it, or that I feel that you want it. So nice. Thank you. That's what it was now. Had nothing to do with you. It's the energy of my heart. There's some hugging going on.
by a spot every day.
Really?
Every day, so I was on a spot. She said the little spikes on the, if you back up, you're gonna have tire damage, you know?
Trained my goldfish to say amen now. You just look at it in the water.
Sounds fishy.
Yeah, it is a fishy story, but it's true.
I have a goldfish that jumped out of the water.
Yeah.
I think it was a fish on Pesach. In the outskirts, a goldfish jumped out of the water.
It's not a fishy story.
Oh, it is funny. I didn't know what to do because it's a goldfish.
Time for a little soup.
Yeah, we always do pet food in the house.
Pet rocks.
Morning.
That's it.
Put the toner.
Get the toner. All right, I'll go get. Just Rabbi. Let's do this thing. Morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Video clip. Somebody wrote a little natural for the regular name. By Humble. So, morning, Lenny.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Shmini, Shmini. Thank you so much.
So you're gonna go to the note and show.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's page 35, Parsha Shmini. Since this week is Parsha Shmini, so we'll learn the Maimer of Likutei Torah Parsha Shmini. Actually, Likutei Torah Parsha Shmini is only one Maimer. Page 35. On top it says Tzav and Shmini. It's the second half of the page, or Daf Yud Ches, column 1. Remember that in Likutei Torah the numbers repeat themselves for each Chumash. So you want to make sure that it's Daf Yud Ches, Parshas Tzav Shmini. On top it should say Tzav Shmini, Parsha Shmini. Leviasan ze yatzarta l'sachik by. This Maimer, this discourse of the Balatanya was said in the year Tov Kuf Ayin Aleph. which would be equivalent to 1811, which means very close toward the end of his life. As his passing was Tavkuf Ayin Gimel 2 years later, this was Tavkuf Ayin Aleph, 1811. The Maimer begins with a pasuk from Tehillim, chapter 104, Tehillim Kuf Daled, known as Borchi Nafshi, which we say in Rosh Chodesh. The connection to Shmini will be obvious. And it begins with the pasuk Livyason Zeya Tzarta L'Sachig Boy. David HaMelech says, you have created the Leviathan, the famous titanic, huge fish, whale, the Livyason, you created it L'Sachig Boy, to toy with it, to laugh with it, to play with it, to kvel with it. Isba Medrash Rabbah Parsha Shmini Parsha Yud Gimel. The Medrash Rabbah on Parsha Shmini, this week's Parsha Yud Gimel, section 13, the Medrash Rabbah says the following, and he begins to quote from the Medrash. Behemis v'Livyason hem kinigoyin shel tzadikim la'asid lava. The behemoths, which means the large mammals, the large oxen or other mammals, and the leviathan, the fish, the whale, are the kinigoin. Kinigoin means the circus or the gladiator. Kinigoin was the term used, it's probably, I think, a Greek term or a foreign language, which was the term that was used for the large spectacles that the emperors, the Caesars, kings in the ancient world would make between animals, animal fighting, huge fights. And this was a very enjoyable sport to watch the lion fight the bear, the tiger. It was just, it was a whole sport. Sadly and tragically, it was bloody and violent and vicious, and a lot of pain for animals involved. And even more heinous was the fact that they would often put in people, slaves, and others that they wanted to punish to endure these horrible spectacles. And everybody would watch this fight. It was called the Kinigia. So Kinigia would be like a circus, a gladiator, this large theatrical spectacle. So the Medrash says that those who abstained from all the Kinigias in this world, they will have their own Kinigia, their own circus, l'asad lava, in the future. The behemoths and the Leviathan, the mammals and the Leviathan, that's the Kinigia, that's the circus of the righteous people, of the good people, moral people, l'asad lava, in the future. And the Medrash continues that there's going to be, so to speak, a circus of the behemoths and the Leviathan. Behemoths noisitz l'Levyasan bekarnov. The behemoths, which I assume here refers to oxen, bulls, which have horns, karnayim. So the behemoth, the ox, is going to stab the Levyasan, the fish, the whale, bekarnov, with its horns. V'koyrei. And as a result of that, it's going to get torn. V'Levyasan, during this fight, the Leviathan, the Leviathan, noisitz lebehemoths besanpirov, will stab the ox with its fins. Its fins are so big and powerful and sharp, it will stab the ox with its fins. V'noicharoi. V'noicharoi means it will stab it and kill it, snuff out its soul. And this will become the feast for the tzaddikim, for the righteous men and women, l'asad lava, in the future. We speak about it in the Gemara and Baba Basra, and this Medrash is the source for the fact that there's going to be the huge feast when Mashiach comes, known as the Feast of Levyasan and Shor Habar. Levyasan is the fish course, and Shor Habar is the meat course. Shor Habar, the ox, the wild ox. Bar means outside, the untamed, wild, outside ox that can't be domesticated and just placed in a barn, calm and serene. That's Shor Habar, the wild ox. The Levyasan and Shor Habar, you know the Yiddish song, right? The Suda was gate benessen by the Suda. Huh? Leviosan sushi, yeah, it's going to be a big sushi platter. So that's the source, this medrash, that is going to be a kenigia, some type of circus, and this battle, and they're going to be fed to the righteous people who abstained from the kenigia throughout history, where the kings would watch these spectacles of the animals killing each other. That's the medrash. Continues the medrash, v'loi kachtaninon. How can there be this tradition in Torah? It contradicts a Mishnah. It's not what we learned. We learned a Mishnah, Maseches Chulin. Some of you are learning Masechet Chulin now. Zog the Mishnah, the first parak of Chulin. Hakol shoichten. Every kosher adult Jew is eligible to shecht, to slaughter an animal or a bird. Ubakol shoichten. And one may use every type of instrument, a knife or anything that's similar to a knife in order to slaughter. Ula'olam shoichten. And it's not limited to time. La'olam shoichten. Any time or hour of the day and the night is eligible for shchita, for slaughtering. Chutz, says the Mishnah, but you can't use magal kotzir. You can't use a sickle that is used for harvest. And as the Mishnah continues, you can't use a sword. Why? You have to use a sharp, smooth blade, because if you use, as he puts it there, shinayim, a tooth, a sharp tooth, or a megeda, or a sword, or nesarim, or a sickle, here what happens is you don't have the smooth blade that is shchita, that's drawn back and forth and slaughters the animal, but rather it's like a stab into the animal, which disqualifies it. It's not kosher. And here we see clearly, how is this shor, this ox, going to be shechted, how it's going to be slaughtered? The fin of the Leviathan is going to stab it. Noisitz lebehemes besanpirov. The fin of the Leviathan is going to stab it. If so, it's a disqualified shchita. If it's a disqualified shchita, you're not allowed to eat the shor habar. That's what the Medrash Rabbah asks. So this whole tradition is strange because it's based on something that would be halachically wrong. That's the question that the Medrash asks on itself. V'loi kachtaninon, it's opposite of a Mishnah. Answers the Medrash. There are fish that can have snapper and not have kaskesas. The Mishnah says that every fish that has scales inevitably has fins, but there are fins which have there are fish which have fins and don't have scales.
So if the shore was not shepherded by a police, I mean, so technically else was a kosher fish too.
You could say it's kosher. That's not a problem. You could say it's kosher. It has fins, or also has scales. We're not talking about the scales because we're talking here about the method of how it's killing the ox. It's killing through the sharp snapper, so to speak. It's a stab. That's what nechira means. But the question is, you're not allowed to kill this way. You're not allowed to shecht. It's the antithesis to the halach of shchit. And we know that there's a principle in Yiddishkeit. One of the 13 famous principles, one of the 13 animamins, one of the 13 principles that the Rambam sets up. HaTorah hazois loi tehei muchlefes. The Torah is not something that's going to be changeable. It's not that the mitzvahs are temporary, and then at a certain future time, the mitzvahs get cancelled. In fact, if a Navi comes, if a prophet comes, even if it's a prophet who is considered authentic, and in the name of God, he says he has a prophecy, and the prophecy is he's going to cancel a mitzvah. For example, he says, Hashem told me that Shabbos should not be celebrated on the 7th day anymore. Shabbos should be Sunday. Or that tefillin should be put on only once a year. Or Yom Kippur you should start eating. Anything that he changes in a mitzvah, immediately you know that he's a Navi Sheker. This is the great immediate sign that he's lying. It's false, as the Rambam explains at length in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah. So even though we're talking about after Mashiach comes, halacha doesn't change. Torah is nitzchis. Torah is eternal. All Torah and mitzvahs are eternal. That's Derech Hagav in parentheses. It's one of the biggest issues, maybe the biggest issue. I mean, not only, but one of the big issues when people wonder why Jews rejected Christianity, right? One of the first signs, besides everything else, in other words, even if you would assume that a person could make many miracles, even it could be in other words, it's not negay if it's a lie or not. Even if a person would perform tremendous miracles, first of all, it could be it's all a lie. But even if a person would perform tremendous amount of miracles, if a person changes one halacha of the Torah and says that this mitzvah is not eligible, or this mitzvah is not relevant, or this mitzvah has been cancelled out, from a halachic point of view, that is an immediate disqualification of this prophet as a navi sheker, as a liar. The one exception is if the navi comes and says that there is a temporary instruction by Hashem to violate a mitzvah. The example for that would be Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi, we learned in the Haftarah of Kisisa, right? Malachim Perik Yud Zayin, Malachim Beis Perik Yud Zayin. Eliyahu Hanavi offered a carbon where? On Mount Carmel, Hara Carmel. He brought a carbon there, they brought the 2 oxen, and the prophets of the Baal did one carbon, and he did another carbon. Aneni Hashem, Hashem U'Elakim, Hashem U'Elakim. There was a Beis HaMikdash. How could he be makriv a carbon b'chutz? The answer was, this is called in halacha, hiras shah. Hiras shah means a temporary instruction. Temporary. But if you know that the Navi is an authentic Navi, a love to Shmo, and you have to listen to him. But if Eliyahu Hanavi would come and say, that's it, the whole concept of offering in the Beis HaMikdash is gone, God changed his plans, that would be testimony that he's a Navi Sheker. So this is a very interesting concept throughout all of Jewish history. Anybody who contradicts any word of Torah, and says, yeah, but I have a new prophecy. I'm also a prophet. Moshe was a prophet, I'm also a prophet. Immediately he undermines himself. And the reason for this is also very fascinating. The Rambam gives a very logical reason for this. The Rambam says the reason we believe a prophet is not because we know he's true, he's right. Some people could be charlatans. People even have the power to manipulate stuff. Some people could make miracles, perhaps. So the reason we believe a Navi is because Moshe Rabbeinu told us to believe a prophet. And the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu was uncontested because by Matan Torah every Jew was there. Every Jew was a prophet. And because Moshe said that this Torah is a niglas lanu levanenu ad olam lasas kol divrei Torah hazos. A word in the Chumash is considered a word that's testified, it's testifiable, it's testimonies by every single Jew who was there by Matan Torah, not one person. So therefore, if it contradicts that, we don't believe, we will not believe the Navi, yeah.
How were we able to build a Beis HaMikdash and go into the Mishkan? We should have the Mishkan in Shalim, and that's it. That's what originally was given by Moshe.
So you're asking a good question. Why would they change from the Mishkan to the Beis HaMikdash? The answer is because in Parshas Re'eh, in Chumash, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, "Lo basem ad atel hamenucha v'lanachla." You have not yet reached your place of settlement, and when you come there, you'll come to the place that God chose. So he describes the fact that now they're still in a mobile sanctuary, moving around from place to place, which was not the ultimate destiny. They were supposed to go into Eretz Yisrael, and he describes that one day you're going to shift to a permanent situation. But you're right, if there wouldn't be, if it's something that would be changed from the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, immediately it's a sign that it's a sheker, it's a lie. So here you have a fascinating example. You're telling me beautiful maises, mit alav yosem, mit asher habar. There's a Mishnah in Chulin that contradicts this. It's not a shchita. You're not allowed to have such a shchita. I mean, you could shech the shor, but you can't eat it. It's not shchita. That's the question in the Medrash. It's treif, yeah. Treif in the sense of the shchita not being good. Not treif in the sense of an illness. And for the Medrash, a fascinating answer. And the Medrash answers that there's a pasuk in Yeshaya. And the pasuk in Yeshaya Hanavi says that in the future, Torah me'iti teitze. When Mashiach comes, Torah will come out from me. Torah will emerge from me. What do you mean it will? It's have to say Torah me'iti yotza. Torah emerged from me. Matan Torah was already. So the Medrash, what Yeshaya Navi is saying is Chidush Torah me'iti tetzeh. A Chidush in Torah is going to come out from me. A novelty in Torah. Torah, the expression of the Medrash is Torah chadasha me'iti tetzeh. A new Torah is going to emerge from me. What's Pshat? Says the Balatanya, the Medrash is telling us, Shakadosh Baruch Hu yatir oz shchitazu. There's going to be what seems like a hiras shah, a special instruction that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to say, for once, I'm allowing this shchita. Sheyishchet halavyasan as a behema b'sampirov. That the Levyasan, the great whale, shechts the behema with its fins. It stabs the behema with its fins and the behema dies. There's going to be a special, unique heter dispensation for one time only, that even though the halacha usually says this would be forbidden, but as the Mefarshim explain, and this is what it seems he's saying, that we know that Hiras Shah, as I said before, the example of Eliyahu Navi, a temporary, momentary instruction, a Navi, if you know that he's an authentic Navi, you have to know that he's an authentic Navi. Stam, a person gets up and says, God told me that we're not putting on tefillin today, right? That you don't believe a person like that. But we're talking about an authentic Navi like Eliyahu Navi. And this is going to be a Hiras Shah, temporary instruction. It's going to be mutter. Torah chadasha me'iti tetzim. Interesting thing. It's going to be a new Torah that's going to come out from you. What's this new Torah? This new Torah is that you can eat this behemah. That's the Medrash Rabbi in Parsha Shmini. And he says, "Ubehemus elu zeu inyan shor habar." When we speak about shor habar in different sources of Chazal, the wild ox that's going to be the food la'asid lave when Mashiach comes, this is these behemus, the behemus and the levyasin. That's the levyasin and the shor habar, the wild ox. That's why the Gemara says in Baba Basra Daf Ayin Daled, he brings in the foot in the parentheses, Ayin Baba Basra Daf Ayin Daled Amid Beis, Ayin Hey Amid Aleph. Targum Yonis and Tehillim Simen Nun al Pasuk Behemus Bararei Olav V'Tor Bar. On the Pasuk Behemus, the Targum Yonis and calls it V'Tor Bar, which means the Shor Habar. Tor in Aramaic is ox, and the Baba Basra speaks about the meal of Levyasan and Shor Habar. This is what the Medrash is referring to. Now, obviously, the whole Inyan is Doirish Bir. The whole Inyan needs explanation. What is the Medrash saying? Since you didn't go, and you weren't part of the circuses these days, you weren't part of those fights in Rome or in Athens or in the other great cities where they did it, therefore you're going to have your own kenigia. Also a wild, violent fight with a special heter, with a special shchit. He says, to understand this whole theme, what is this about? Like, what's the teichen? What's the necessity for it? What does it represent? If it's cruel, so suddenly when Mashiach comes, it's not going to be cruel. You're praising the Jewish people for staying away from these types of activities. So how are you going to reward them? By doing it. It's like if you don't eat the nash because it's not good for you, I'm going to give you even more nash. If it's not good, it's not good. So then it is going to be good. And there has to be a special shchita that's not mutter. Why do you have to change halacha? Why can't they just shech the shor habar in a legal way? No, there has to be chidush Torah me'iti tetzeh. Like this is a new Torah that when Mashiach comes, that this shchita becomes mutter, but only temporarily, because you can't change Torah even when Mashiach comes. So it's a chiddush here, and this is like, what's the big chiddush? Fine, so you matter the shchita. I mean, why is it so fundamental? Why is it so important? Why do you need this chiddush? So obviously, this is it represents something profound. There's something going on here in the Medrash. This whole meal of the Levyasan and Shor Habar with this kenigia and the circus and the fight and so forth. Gute kashas, huh? Dafke no shchita. The Levyasan stabs it, and that's it. No regular shchita. Ha'inyan, the explanation and all of this is ki yesh beis minei tzadikim. There are two types of tzadikim. The word tzadikim here obviously refers to tzaddikim, what we call special, righteous, holy souls. But va'amich kulam tzaddikim, as the pasuk says in Yeshaya. The word tzaddik means there are two types of good people, of righteous people, of moral people, of Ovdei Hashem, of people who serve God. Ha'alef, the first category, is Oyson Shehem B'Seiser. Those who are B'Seiser. B'Seiser literally means those who are secretive. What do we mean by secretive? Secretive doesn't necessarily mean that nobody knows them. It means their whole lifestyle, their whole avodah is one that is concealed. Sha'avodasam beruchnius. Their primary avodas Hashem deals with the internal, with the world of the spirit, the world of ruchnius. Pirush, what do we mean? Bekavanas halev. Their primary avodas Hashem is with kavanas halev, meaning it's the internal consciousness and intention of their heart. Liyachid yichudim elyonim, and the Kabbalistic expression to be miyachid, to unify. Yichudim elyonim, unifications, higher unifications, ub'chinas aliyas. Liyachid yichudim elyonim is a classic expression of Teres HaNister, of Teres HaKabbalah. You have it in Chassidus, you have it in Kabbalah, a lot. Liyachid yichudim means to reveal the unity of the world. The world is one. But to be meyachid yichudim means to reveal the unity of the world in many different ways and different fashions. In Kabbalah you'll have what's called yichud zun, and yichud b'chachmon bina, and yichud zal malchus, and just it's all different terms that represent connect, to reveal the unity, to connect. And their avodah is one that is continuous, represents continuous ascents and climbs. The classic example would be Reb Shimon Bar Yochai K'shahaya b'Mayri Yid Gimel Shana. The Gemara says in Maseches Shabbos that he ran away to a cave and he was there for 13 years with his son because of the Roman persecution. He had to escape and he stayed in a cave for 13 years. Obviously, during those years, there were many practical, physical mitzvahs maisius, mitzvahs that we do, b'maisa, meaning not with our machshava, with our kavanah, but mitzvahs you have to do with your physical hands and physical feet and physical items around you that he couldn't do. The Gemara says, how were they nurtured? How were they nourished from a charuva? Charuva is a carob tree, a boxer, and Eina Demaya, a spring of water that was created for them. Im Kain, if that's the case, Loikiyam Achilas Matzah B'Pesach. He couldn't observe eating of matzah on Pesach. Nobody knew where they are to bring the matzah, to deliver matzah. Fakert, they had to run away because they were afraid if his wife finds out, knows, or other people know, they could be tortured and reveal the secret. So this was a complete secret. So there was no matzah on Pesach. Matzah, you need grain. You can't be kayim matzah from boxer. Weiter, v'kiddush alayayin, kiddush on wine, Shabbos, Yom Tov. Weiter comes Sukkos, Esrik, an Esrik. Weiter, v'sukkah, eating in a sukkah, chuli. So you could say on one level, Oynes Rachmana Patre. I mean, there were Jews who were in the gulags in Siberia and many other places. They didn't have matzah for Pesach, didn't have a sukkah on sukkahs, didn't have a lulav, they didn't have an esrik. Yeah. Even in our generation, not too long ago, there were many Jews who were Erlich Yidden, they were in a state of Oynes. So we have a klal Oynes Rachmana Patre. But the chiddush here is that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, he had a special carob tree that was created for him, and an Eina Demaya that was created for him in the Maida, and nonetheless, certain mitzvahs he couldn't do. The Arizal was also in this state, in this b'china. Ritzayni loymar, al derech masha kasav b'zoyer chele gimel davkuf pezayin al pasuk v'yid gula roiv b'kerev haaretz. Similar to what the Zohar says, explaining Yaakov's words, v'yid gula roiv b'kerev haaretz. V'yid gu comes also from the word dogim. So it doesn't only mean they will prosper abundantly in the earth, it means that even in the aretz, they are like vayidgu, they're like dogim. Mashenkin shar nuneyama sheinem ba'aretz, where the other nuneyama means the fish of the sea. Nuneyama, the fish of the sea, which are not in the earth. Rak bayam, they're in the ocean, they're in the seas. Zawinyan amalachim, that's angels. The chiddush is v'yidgu l'roiv b'karev aretz. They have souls that are on dry land, but they're like dogim. They're like nuneyama. They're the fish of the sea. Nuneyama. What's pshat? Nuneyama. There's an expression in Zohar there. Nuneyama de mishalchin beyabeshta. Fish of the sea that walk around on dry land. Usually, if you don't have fish walking around on the Aretz, because it's a contradiction. The fish can't live. The fish needs to be in the water. And there's a difference, there's a complete distinction between amphibious creatures and dry land creatures. Comes Yaakov Avinu and says there's going to be special neshamas, v'yidgu, from the word dogim, v'yidgu from the term dogim, fish, v'yidgu l'roiv, b'kerev ha'aretz. On the dry land, b'yabeshta, they're going to be in a state of dogim. They're called nunei yama, the fish of the sea. And then there are the malachim, they are also fish, but they're in the yam, they're in the water, they're naturally in the water. The chiddush is that there are tzaddikim who walk on the earth. You could see them. And nonetheless, essentially, that from that state of nunei yama, the example he gave are two people, Reb Shimon bar Yochai and the Arizal. I should just say that there's the Tzemach Tzedek's hanocha from this maimer that he wrote from his grandfather, Tov Kuf Ayin Aleph. And he writes over there that the expression, when he writes the Maimon, the expression of his Zayda was the Balatanya, Rashbi v'chaveirov, Ha'arizal v'chaveirov, and he adds v'chein Baal Shem Tov v'chaveirov. The Rashbi and his colleagues, although it's people similar to him, the Arizal and his colleagues, and he adds also the Baal Shem Tov and his colleagues. The Balatanya and the Maimer, there were different people who wrote the Maimarim. The Likutei Torah was usually written by his brother, the Maharil, Rabbi Yehuda Leib. But there's many Maimarim that we have other versions, very similar, but just sometimes variations or additions that were written by by a son or by an Einikol, by a grandson, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, or others. So from this Maimar, there's another Hanoch, there's another text in Maimar Admar Azaka, Tov Kuf Ayin Aleph, I think it's from the Tzemach Tzedek. So over there he adds V'chein HaBaal Shem Tov v'chaveirav. That's a very interesting addition. What's the concept of nunei yama, fish of the sea? The difference between creatures of dry land and creatures in the water is, creatures in the water, you don't see them. They're completely submerged. That's why he says, there's tzaddikim that are beseser, they're submerged. When you look at the water, Malahar is there, Hashem kamayim layam mechasim, what you see is the waterbed. If you go scuba diving, and you go deep down under the water, you'll see a ganze Welt, the whole universe. It's unbelievable what goes on there. But from our perspective, what we see is, it's all covered by water. The definition of dry land creatures is the exact opposite. You look around, I see you, and I see you, and I see you, and I see you. In other words, the definition is hisgalus. It's revealed. The identity is revealed. Where in the yam, everything is concealed by the yam, even though there are distinct creatures. But it's a whole different mahalach, it's a whole different shnit. So that's the difference between Rashbi. In the Maira, what was his avodah? The whole avodah was internal. He didn't have matzah. He didn't have an esrog. He didn't have a physical sukkah. He didn't have physical schach. He didn't have wine. But was there kiddush by the Rashbi? Of course he made kiddush on Shabbos. Did he have matzah on Pesach? Of course he had matzah on Pesach. But it was a different type of matzah. Fakert. His matzah on Pesach was gar matzah. But it was the energy of the matzah, the consciousness of the matzah. Then you have a second category. You have tzaddikim, they're not called the fish of the sea. The fish are concealed in the water. Their whole avodah is internal. But here, their whole avodah is begili, in a revealed way, just like creatures who live on dry land, not in the water, where you see clearly the identity of each individual. When you're on the dry land, what do you see? Here's a tree, here's a bush, here's an ant, here's a turtle, here's lahavdil a person, here's an animal, here's the road, here's a car. Every nivra is begilu, it's completely revealed. Sha'avoidasam begashmiyas. Their avodas Hashem is primarily begashmiyas. Begashmiyas means with the material world. Bekiyam ha-mitzvahs maisias. Observing the mitzvahs maisias, meaning the mitzvahs with action, in maisa. Not just in machshava, in thought and consciousness. An example he gives is v'samachta b'chagecha. For example, we spoke about Rashbi, how he celebrated Esrig and Sukkot and Lulav and Matzah and Pesach. But how was it? Not with wine, and not with meat, and not with matzah. He couldn't. It was an internal experience. But then there is v'samachta b'chagecha in a very practical way. Shehu gamkein hamshachas oiris al yonim. And it's not pshat that when somebody does something physically, it's just a physical act. No, it also draws down higher light. In other words, the physical mitzvah draws down Oris Elyonim, divine light, higher light. Moya de Havaya. That's why the Yom Tovim are called Eila Moya de Hashem. They are Moya de Havaya. They're not just rituals. You make a holiday for people to relax, for people to eat, for families to get together. He says, no, they're called Moya de Hashem. They're God's holidays. No, they're designated days where there's a unique energy in the world that you can access. Moya de Hashem. And the true simcha of Yom Tov. Nunu Leni, finish also the words, not only the niggin. Finish the words. What's simcha? What's the simcha? The real simcha of Yom Tov is what? What makes Yom Tov a happy day? That there's an opportunity to experience a deeper or more of Orein Soif, of the light of infinity. Shenimshach, its access to Mizgala gets more revealed. That's what creates real Simchas Yom Tov. In other words, the Simcha of Yom Tov is not just a Simcha physical, because a person is not working, or a person gets more sleep, or a person eats more. That's the outer manifestation of it. But what is the Simcha? The Simcha of Yom Tov is one nekuda, Orein Soif Baruch Hu Shenimshach Mizgala. That the Oid of the Ein Soif is accessed, it flows, it's more accessible, it's more revealed. Comes the Torah and says that this flow, this access comes through mitzvahs b'maisa, b'uvda. Uvda means maisa, action. Like the Gemara says in Psachim. We're going to learn it soon in Arvi Psachim. By the time of the Beis HaMikdash, ein simcha ela b'basar. Simcha happened through basar. That's the expression of the Gemara. Ein simcha ela b'basar. There was no simcha, only through basar, only through meat. What's pshat? Dahainu mitzvahs shalmei simcha shoyimuvim b'chol Yom Tov. There was a mitzvah v'samachta b'chagecha that everybody should bring shalmei simcha. Shalmei simcha means a special carbon, which was called a carbon shlamim. And they would designate it for simcha, and you would eat it, you and your spouse and your children and any guests. These karbanos could be eaten for 2 days and a night in the whole of Yerushalayim, within the wall of Yerushalayim. So, in addition to any other karbanos, there was an oilas re'iyah or a personal carbon a person had to bring. But when you came Yom Tov, whether it was Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, you brought a special carbon shlamim called Shalmei Simcha, and on this it says V'samachta b'chagecha. You should celebrate, offer this carbon. Of course, the fat would be burnt on the altar. There was a part that was eaten by the kohanim, and then most of it was given to the owner to take home and enjoy with his family. And this was a chiyuv on every Yom Tov. And the Gemara says that Bisman Abayis ein simcha ela bebasar. Va'achshav, the Gemara continues now, ein simcha ela beyayin. Now we don't have this basar, so the simcha now is beyayin. We still have yayin, we could drink the wine. Then it was simcha bebasar. They had the shalmei simcha. Now we don't have the karbanas. Zayin simcha ela beyayin. Ukadil kaman, as we will explain. So what's pshat ein simcha ela bebasar, ein simcha ela beyayin? It's not like some people think. You eat a piece of meat, you eat a spare ribs, you get into a good mood. Yeah, that's the pshat ein simcha ela bebasar. The pshat is that it was a carbon. The Baal Shem Tov teaches ein simcha ela bebasar. There's no simcha only with flesh. Interesting lashon of Chazal. Ein simcha. There's no happiness in the world, only a piece of steak. Right? It's an interesting expression. Ela b'basar. Ein simcha. Don't think there's any other simcha. Don't think anything else is going to make you happy. So there are people who adhere to this, and not only with shalmei simcha in the Beis Hamikdash. For them, maybe the Beis Hamikdash was never destroyed. Every piece of steak is a shtickle shalmei simcha. The Baal Shem Tov said something very, very powerful. Ein simcha ela b'basar. There's no real simcha in this world, ela b'basar, unless you're ready to confront your basar. Unless you're ready to deal with your basar. You have to deal with your basar. With your own basar. Ein simcha ela b'basar. In other words, in this world, I have to work with my basar. Refine it, educate it, work with it. I don't live, it's not a neshama that's in Olam Ha'elyon and Gan Eden. The only simcha is ela b'basar, to work with the guf, to refine it, to educate it, to inspire it, to elevate it. Very often, The basar dimension of life frustrates us. It gets us annoyed. It's an obstacle. It's a distraction. So the Gemara says it's not how it works. Ein simcha, the only real simcha is a simcha that comes when you work with your basar. You have to infuse your basar with meaning. You have to inspire it, elevate it, sublimate it, find the godliness in it. And there's not going to be simcha any other way because it's a real... This is what the person is. The person is a soul in a guf, in a body. And on the contrary, this is the ultimate tachlis, to bring the simcha into the basar. So there's ein simcha ela b'basar. So what does this basar mean? The basar was a vehicle. It was a physical vehicle through which on Yom Tif there was an experience of Or Ein Sof. It was a very, very refined experience, very, very edel experience. Don't confuse this with gluttony. Gluttony can't bring joy. A person who just becomes a fresser doesn't become a happier person. You're just attracted for a few minutes, you're starving, so you eat and eat and eat non-stop, and then what do you feel like? You feel like a behemoth. Behemoths actually are happy after they eat. Huh? You could see. You could see.
Not talking about Shabbos here at all.
Even Shabbos. What's Pshat Achilas Shabbos? What's Pshat? They say that the Baal Shem Tov was once sitting with his Talmidim Friday night. So Hafla de Kamaisa, and one of his Talmidim brings it. And they were talking about Machali Shabbos, eating on Shabbos. And he asked them to put their hands on each other, you know, like they do in camp, the boys do in camp, their hands on each other, and the two Talmidim near him to put their hands on him, and to close their eyes, and I think he sang a nigun. And they said later that they saw an ox, this is the expression in Yiddish, sie haben gesehen, an ox in a streimel, was esst Machali Shabbos. They saw an ox, a bull, a streimel on top of him, and he was eating the food of Shabbos. That's what they saw. So they emerged, they asked the Baal Shem Tov, my high, yeah, mazeh val mazeh. So the Baal Shem Tov said, this is a Yid, I wanted to show you a Yid. Right now, he's eating the Shabbos meal. Yeah. He's so passionately involved in the food, at his givod in the ox, he was eating steak. He became the steak. He became a shtick steak. There was no person anymore. Instead of the steak becoming human, the human became the steak. There was nothing else. So they said, what's the streimel? So he said a beautiful word. He says, the streimel is a lavush from Shabbos. Because it's a lavush of Shabbos, it was a garment of Shabbos, so it wasn't his gashem. It didn't become part of that behemoth. But every other, because that was a garment of Shabbos, so that retained its Shabbos quality. But every other part of him, basically, you didn't see a person anymore. And it's given in the behemoth. He was so passionate. You understand the feeling the Baal Shem Tov was describing, yeah? Some of us could relate to it. Especially when you're starving, you're hungry, there's nothing else. This becomes life. But that's not a source of simcha, it's just a distraction. It's usually like another addiction, another appetite, another habit. Because 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, you're back to the regular self, and sometimes even you're just heavy and lethargic and you can't breathe for a few hours and you can't feel. When people are stuffed, they usually can't feel emotions for a couple hours until they sober up. So that has nothing to do with simcha. That's called distraction. That's not happiness. It's temporary distractions, fun, enjoyments. It's like buying new gadgets and so forth. For a few hours, it's exciting, right? But it never brings you simcha. Simcha comes from pnimius. Simcha comes from alignment. So when we speak about Machali Shabbos, Machali Yom Tif, all this, the truth is that we need a little help in this area, because it happens to be that in our culture and our religion, much of Shabbos and Yom Tif, at least for some people, is primarily about food. More eating and more eating, to a point where people push it are, you know, they're like not really, like the food really takes over their everything.
The last generations, we have to be massacring a lot of animals.
Right, but the only way you can be massacring a lot of animals if you remain human. That was the Baal Shem Tov's point. If I become the animal, then I can't be massacring the animal. Yeah. So you have the madrega of Reb Meir of Primishlan. Reb Meir Primishlan once said, and I'm telling you, it's Reb Meir of Primishlan. Reb Primishlan was a very big tzaddik, and he once said that the only person who's allowed to eat meat The only person is somebody that when he eats the meat, he feels like the behemoth during the shchita. That's what Meir Primishlan said. That's the only person who's allowed to eat meat, because when he eats meat, the meat wants to be eaten by him. The behemoth wants to be eaten by him. But he says if you're craving it, then he says, then you're a shtik meat yourself. So who gives you a right to slaughter a behemoth and eat it? And this is a fundamental idea, because animals get killed for us. You take a fish out of water, it dies. You slaughter a chicken or a behemoth, it gets slaughtered, it gets killed. What's the right to slaughter an animal? Who gives us a right to slaughter an animal? Huh? Oh, right, but what's the Havana in this? What's the Havana? It's a living being. We say Tsar Balachayim is us, so you're not allowed to aggravate an animal. Tsar Balachayim, right, according to most poskim, is Midayraisa. It's a biblical prohibition. And here, Mashecht, people don't even think about it. Huh? I know the history. We're trying to understand the Havana. Thousands of years later, we still want to kill people. You want to kill people? Sometimes you want to kill somebody, Zaksta. So the truth is, it's a very sensitive thing. It's a very sensitive thing. The Gemara says you're not allowed to eat before davening. Asur lechel al adam. You're not allowed to eat before davening. So the Baal Tanya explains, because the function of achila is always, I need the food in order to live, but also I have to realize that the food needs me. And when I'm eating, I'm in a state of consciousness where I elevate the food. I sublimate the food. The food becomes part of Adam, becomes part of the larger chain and web of creation. There's a food chain, and everything is part of that chain, like we learned on Shabbos at length in the Maimer of Achaltam Achal and Parshas Tzaf. There's a huge food chain throughout history and every day and in the whole world. When I become part of that, and the buck doesn't stop here, everything serves. So the doimim serves the tzemeach, and the tzemeach serves the chai, and the chai serves the medaber, and the medaber serves God. Then it becomes sublimated. When it becomes narcissistic and hedonistic, then there's something off. So sometimes there's an animal, it appreciates, reich nichayach l'Hashem, it appreciates being sublimated and being converted into the bloodstream of a person. If not, the question is, why am I superior? Who gives me a right? Just because I'm more powerful, or not more powerful, I'm not more powerful than an ox, but just because I'm more manipulative, I know how to trap the ox or trap the chicken, and I may like it kill him. So the Meir Primishlan was describing it in very, very dramatic ways, which is a pretty high level, that when you eat, you feel like the behemoth during the shchita. I don't know that many of us can relate to that. But the sensitivity, Taza, very good. You're saying after you eat, you feel like the behemoth during the shchita, which is the whole point. We eat, people look at the food. Yeah, you ever see how they eye sometimes a plate at a smorgasbord? They eye, yeah, you know, yeah, and it's like it's mamash Mashiach. It represents Mashiach. If I get this plate of food, all my problems are gone. But it's not that. That's not the nekuda. You're hungry, you have to eat. Avada, you know, when we're hungry, we want to eat. But when that becomes the substitute for life, so now it's like it's another drug. So for some people, it's a drug. I mean, it has milas over other drugs, but essentially it's the same. It's the same nekuda. As a result of that, what he's saying is, when we speak about ein simcha ela bebasar, never mistake it that the basar is the cause of simcha. There's no such a thing. Shabbos has nothing to do with food. Yom Tov has nothing to do with food. The Eibishter is nicht a shtik steak. God is not a piece of steak or a piece of kugel or a piece of kishke. Das ist nicht der Eibishter. It's a distraction. The whole nekud of Shabbos, Yom Tov, is not food. The food, the chiddush of Shabbos and Yom Tov is that physical food can become a vehicle for Simchas Yom Tov, for Simchas Shabbos. But what is it a vehicle for? It's a vehicle for Hamshachas v'gilui Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Gili of Ein Sof, and the Gili of Ein Sof is always about bittul, it's about refinement, it's about transcendence, it's about going out of my entrenchment in my own insecurities and my need for distractions and appetites and addictions. Fakert, it's the most subtle way of eating, where the food itself becomes a vehicle for divine spiritual energy. That's the Chiddush of Shabbos and Yom. The Chiddush of Shabbos and Yom is not God becomes a piece of steak. It's that a piece of steak could become a vehicle for divinity when it's eaten and seen in the right way.
Why do you have to have basar? It seems like there's a chiyuv of having basar in Shabbos. You could do that with any food.
There's no chiyuv. No, by the Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara says the Basman Abayis ain't simcha ela bebasar. There's a chiyuv to eat foods that are ma'aneg a person, that give delight to a person. If a person is disgusted by a certain food, they don't have to eat it. That's what the Gemara says. Basman Abayis ain't simcha ela bebasar. They had the basar of the Shalom Simcha. Today we say ain't simcha ela beyayin on Yom Tov. Yeah. But the point is always that the food is a vehicle. It's not that the food itself becomes the source of Shabbos. Of simcha. Food can't be a source of simcha. It's a mistake that we make. Achila of Shabbos is a holy endeavor. It's a sacred endeavor. It's a getliche experience. And getlichkeit is never grubkeit. Whenever I'm in a moment of laziness and heaviness and just in a bad mood and I have to eat more and more, I'm not in touch with my infinity. Ein Sof is always in a state of serenity and oneness and harmony. The chiddush is that in Yiddishkeit, even the food becomes part of the Ein Sof. Not that the Ein Sof becomes food. The food is part of the Ein Sof. So the Baal Shem Tov was trying to teach his students that here was a Jew. He was eating for Shabbos, but because he didn't understand what it was, what happened? He became the ox himself. He mamish became the ox. So when you would look at him, you would see a person. With the Baal Shem Tov, he was giving them eyes. He was putting on a certain glasses, cleaning their lenses, that when you could look, what you see on physically is a person, but if you see b'pnimius, all the molecules in this person became like the atoms of an ox, because his whole machshava was there, his whole ratzon was there. So ich bin geworden the ox. I'm not a person anymore. I'm literally an ox. And you sometimes feel it that way. You sometimes feel that way, right? You look at yourself and you're like, am I a person? I lost myself. Besides the Shtreimel remained pristine. It's a mazel he was not wearing a Shtreimel when he ate. If he would have taken off the Shtreimel, there would be only an ox.
When it comes to wine and simcha, what would you correspond in Beruchnius to reveal the secrets from your neshama? What would be the...
We spoke Purim, Baruch is come Rabbi Shachtel Rebseida. Nichnas yayin yatzasoid, yeah. Yeino shal Torah, suya yayin nichnas ulamikdash. Not of an aviyu, it says we're suya yayin. So the Shalosh says what? They were Pashut alcoholics. And then Moshe said they're greater than Moshe and Aaron. Not of an aviyu, Pashut alcoholics. They went to the Kiddush club. Some shikit. And then they just said, let's go to the Mishkan, let's have fun. They were greater than Moshe and Aaron. So Taitra suya yayin means a whole different Indian. They were drunk with God. And when they drank wine, it was an expression of that. The yayin also was an expression of that. That's the idea of drinking. It's not just like drinking on Purim. People think that the union of Purim is to get drunk. Chas v'shalom. Purim has to do with drunkenness like Yom Kippur has to do with getting drunk. Huh? What? I swear, we spoke a whole night of Purim. I spoke about this. Avada is a mitzvah l'bsuma b'puria. But there's a teichen here. It's a teichen pnimi, it's a deep inyan. What do you want to say, Rabbi Prazer? Huh? Okay. Pay him back koifel.
When a Rebbe eats food, or when a refined Jew eats food, or when a not so refined Jew in a moment of refinement eats food, they bring the food up to them rather than
Yeah.
down.
That's interesting, yeah. You see, there are people when they eat, they don't bend down to the plate. They take the fork or the spoon and they bring it to their mouth. And so it's not just an aristocratic way of eating. There's also a profound message there. When I go down to the food, basically the food attracts me, and it's by the magnetic forces of gravity, and I become a shtickle. My face is now in the food. I bring the food up to me, means it's the other way around. The food becomes part of the human consciousness. Now the human consciousness is lowered into the animal consciousness. So it's really an attitude. The whole idea of brachas before we eat, that the Chazal were masakin, was to eat with mindfulness, to eat with consciousness, to eat with presence. Even I'm about to eat an apple, I'm about to drink a cup of coffee, whatever I am, I'm about to a cup of water. That's part of a seba. When you recline, you bring the food to you. Why is that called cheirus? Because that's the only way you could be a free person. A lot of people ask me today, why should I do haseba? It's much less comfortable. Yeah, sitting like this is more comfortable. Sitting like this, you ever see people with haseba? They look like in a torture chamber. So you have to make it as comfortable as you can. Maybe you could bring another chair, use another pillow to make it comfortable. The haseba shouldn't be a nightmare. But there's really something deeper than that. When they would recline, they brought the food to themselves. You don't bring the whole food azoi with you. And that's derech cheirus. That means you're a free person. Because the first definition of freedom means that you're in control of your own life. The food doesn't control you, you control it. That's the first cheirus. You know, somebody told me, a teenager, he says, I'm so excited. I said, why are you excited? He says, I now own a phone. He got himself an iPhone. I now own a phone. I said, that would be nice. I'm afraid that the phone owns you. There's a big difference. You own something, but it really owns you.
Cell.
Huh?
Cell. Sometimes it becomes a cell for a person.
A cell. Very good. A cell, like a prison. So derech cheirus means, of course I need the food. Hashem made that a person needs food. A soul to connect to body needs food. But a free person, I'm always free. Always free means I'm always in touch with my Ein Sof, with my infinity. So when I eat, I'm also in touch with it. And therefore, that's what haseba is. When you're haseba, you're a free person. You need the food because that's part of your mission in the world, to elevate the food. The food needs you and you need the food. And it works together. But that's part of haseba. You verstehst? Very important idea. That's why haseba is derech cheirus. Even today, when we're not so used to it, we're used to sitting straight. So by Pesach, everybody does what you're saying. You take the matzah, you take the koirich, you take the mar, whatever you're taking, and you bring it to you. So that's what he's saying here, that the Shalmei Simcha, the Beis HaMikdash, on Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos, it was all physical mitzvahs, very physical. You're eating a piece of meat from a lamb or from a goat or from an ox, whatever they were eating. A shlamim could be different animals. But what was the nekuda? It was Gilui Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That Yom Tov, there's an access to Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Huh? Esther?
As to the middle of the week now.
Oh, middle of the week. Well, middle of the week is nicht a mitzvah. It's nicht a mitzvah von...
The access.
Oh. No, well, there's something called Simchas Yom Tov. In other words, Yom Tov, there's a special Simcha because there's a special Gilui of Ein Sof on Yom Tov Tafka. V'yismechu v'cha kol Yisrael mekadosh shmecha. On Yom Tov, there's a special koyach to access. There's a certain revelation of Ein Sof in the world, higher and more revealed. Moyadei Hashem. The word moyed means designated, right? Like vad, beis vad l'chachamim. Or by the other, it says, v'noi adati l'cha shama. What's v'noi adati l'cha shama? I will designate a place over there. So there's a moyed in space, oyel moyed, and there's a moyed in time. A moyed in space means a designated place where we meet. V'noi adati, oyel moyed, the place where the Rebbeinu Shalom meets humanity. That's moyed in space. And then there's moyed in time. That there are days of the year Hashem says, let's meet. What's pshat, let's meet? I'm going to show up over there. But you also have to show up. If you don't show up, you're not going to meet me. So every Yom Tov is a koyach. There's a certain gilui, Ein Sof in the world that a person could take from. But I have to show up. It comes with avodah. It's not like, can I just sit and do nothing? But there's something there. Sometimes a person feels it more. Sometimes a person feels it less. Sometimes a person doesn't feel it. But it's still there. Yeah. Yeah. Als een chashav archem. Al yoinem yaidel tachtayna. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so how after you...
Met geëindigd.
Geëindigd.
Het is een saf.
Ja. Aber Charlotte ist...
How do you go about it?
Seht aus wie Delusion du toast hast. Du bist nur der einzige Weg von Betroffen.
You believe it that it's going to actually happen the way I'm thinking about it?
Nee, dat was niet leuk. Namens dus is Betroffen. Du kann niedrige Weg von Muschel. Stam, wo ist der Eibestück? Es geht. Es geht uns alle Toulouse. Der Rebbe bringt das raus, du. Also du hast einmal.
Ja, warte.
Weil du kannst nicht das machen.
Ja, ich sehe nicht, ja.
Ja, aber...
Bringt es in Anheben, ne?
Ja. Ja, du kannst nicht... Jetzt ist... Aber es sieht aus wie... Nimmt nur der andere Weg. Dus namens dus Betroffen allein.
What definition of Betroffen? What's your mahalach on this situation?
Het is een opgetreden.
Ja.
No, I need the input. It's going back and forth the last few days.
Ist da Wörter von Baal Shem Tov was gesehen?
Ja.
Hafle de Kevart. Kshroitzin lepara ha'oinish l'misharoi la'oinish noit l'mimenu madregas ha'betach. Because if he has betachin, it can't happen. So he has to not have betachin.
So it looks so simple, but
It's not so simple. No, he just says it's nicht. And biz a maspik, he understands about pashtos. It's a beer, but it's nicht. He says it's nicht. Doesn't cover everything about betachin. I sagt in Sivdal, ein beer is a maspik. It's a beer. Ja. Vayir, hafle of a fella. Als wird nicht meide gehabt, wird es nicht gewonnen. Ah?
Für jeden Mensch. Das ist schade bei jedem Mensch.
Bringt dich von Chöves Alavavis von ich, bringt dich von einer Sache härter.
Ja, maar dat was echt aan een totally
give me your light on this. Give me your light.
I'll give you, we'll just push it, I'll give a Shea Gemara now, so I'm sorry. So. I would love to, I'm just saying... Mach not Zeit, ich bin da. Ja.